Hello, welcome to ZIM Capture. I'm inventor Dan Zen, and ZIM at zimjs.com is an open source framework to make interactive media on the HTML canvas using JavaScript and Create.js. In this capture, we're going to see how we can extend ZIM. In object-oriented coding, we have a principle called inheritance, which allows us to inherit properties from other classes and methods. So, for instance, we can extend a container and then use that container to build something. And whatever we build and make a new object from, we will inherit all of the methods and properties that a container has, such as X and Y and center and these other things that we've been doing, drag and stuff like that. So let's give it a go with some code. This allows you to make your own objects. Now what we've done in ZIM is done just that. When we make a button, it extends a container. So the container is what has all of the sort of the base properties. And then the button, when we make the button, we'll add more properties to it and so forth. And indeed, the ZIM container extends a Create.js container, which extends a Create.js display object, etc. I think. Yeah. So that's how you can be efficient when you do coding. Anything that you have in common, you abstract it and make it into a base class. And then you can create different classes based on that base class that adds more unique things. So, great. I don't know if I explained that okay. I hope so. Let's give it a go. So if we make a car, for instance, well, we'll start off with just a function, car. There, it's a class. And round brackets, maybe we'll just accept the color of the car for now. There is a class. Now that car, we could, if we wanted to, inside there, make a container and so forth. But then when we make a new car, it is not the container. You see what I mean? And classes, we're not supposed to really return anything. So you could make a function called make car, like this, make car, like so. And inside here, we create a container, var container, like that, is equal to a new ZIM dot, I can do it, dot container, like so. And then in the end, we would return that. We would add a whole bunch of stuff to that container, like a body and wheels and all that kind of stuff, and we would return that. And then we can say var car is equal to make car, and pass in a color, red. Okay, and we end up with a car object that has that container. But in this situation, we don't have methods, we don't have properties. All we've got is this object that we end up with in the end without any way to control it. So that's not, like, I mean, we control the outside, we could animate it, maybe, but we'd have to then say, yeah, the car would be a container, so we could say car.animate. But we can't add its own methods and properties. Okay, so instead we make a class. So function car, that's a class. We do not return a container. What we want is this car to actually start off as a container, and then when we build things, we'll add it to the container that this car is. So we won't make car, we'll go new car, like that. So that's our situation. We want to make a new car object, and we want that car object to extend a ZIM container, to be a container to start. Okay, so that looks like this. We use ZIM extend, so zim.extend, like so, and we say, hey, the car will extend a ZIM dot container, like so. Now, this is piggybacking on a system that Create.js put in place with an extend, except it works in a slightly different manner. First of all, it defaults to give you what's called a prefix, I suppose, that we can use to call any of the methods on the superclass. So that's a lot of words all at once. Let's just talk about that. All right, are we in place here? I guess so. So the point is, when we extend another class, sometimes that other class needs to have what it's called its constructor. It needs to run first to kind of set up the other class before we can set up our class on top of it. Now in object-oriented programming, a lot of the times that doesn't have to happen, but in the case of create.js, it is required. So in create.js, we have to call, I'll just write it here and then we can talk about it, this dot super underscore constructor, like so. So what's happening here at the very top is if we want this car, which will be a container, if we want that to run properly when we add all of our stuff in here, we need to make sure that the constructor of the container runs. Now it's kind of funny. What's happening here is since the ZIM container extends a create.js container, one of the first things that the ZIM container does is it calls the constructor of the create.js container, and that's what allows all of this stuff to work. All right, now by default, we're given a super underscore constructor, because if we just said this dot constructor run, that might be a little bit weird because this is the car. This is not, or whatever the car object that is made. This is not the container. So we can't just we can't do it like that. And so we do it like this. By default, ZIM extend will give you a prefix on this, super underscore, and the constructor is always available for us. Now it may be, and this is used in a concept called override. It may be that we want to make our own versions of methods on a car that override the methods that are available in the container. We're going to show an example where instead of centering the car directly, maybe we center it sort of off-center. So we want to make our own center method that, that offsets the car. Well, when we do that, we still want to call the original, the first, the containers center, to center it to begin with, and then we want to move it over. So we don't want to do all the work of centering, which is actually fairly difficult. We want to, we'll override it, but then we want to call the original. We want a way to be able to get at the original, and we can use super underscore center to get at the originals, or at the containers center. Okay, so let's just build a car first before we get into the sort of more complex stuff there. And let's just refresh what we've got so far, because I've said a lot of words and yet there's really not all that much on the screen here. So let's just sort of step back and try this again. We make a car class right here. We saw that it can't get much easier than that. Function car. And then inside, we want to make sure that the super's constructor is run, and that's how we do it. Now, for us to be able to access that constructor and for us to even have a super class, we want to extend. So we say, hey, please make the car extend a ZIM container. All right. So when we do this dot super call constructor, it's really running the container to start. So inside here, we will have a container. In other words, the car starts off with a container, and we get at that container with this. So let's make a body for the car. Var body is equal to a new ZIM dot rectangle, like so, and we'll make it, oh, I don't know, something like 360 or something. Like so, and the color, for the color, we'll give it the color that we're passing in, so color. So we're going to pass in the color, in this case it will be red, and we'll receive that there. Okay, there's the body, and let's add that to this. So dot add to is a method of the rectangle that allows us to add to some container. The container we're going to add to is this, because the car is a container. It extends a container. So this means my container, please. So we're going to take the rectangle and we'll add it to this. There we go. that will allow us to see a rectangle. Now we've got a car here is a new car, and because the car is a ZIM container, it extends a ZIM container. ZIM containers have the add to method. So we could just go add to, like so, and we'll add it to the stage. We could also say stage.add2, or sorry, stage.addChild car. That would be fine as well. And let's take a look in a browser. So there she be. We're in the fit template here, like that. And you can see that we did not position it, but one thing is it's not only got an add to, but luckily it's got a center. And so there's the advantage right there. It wasn't like we're going to make a car and we'll compile all this stuff. We'll do more than just a rectangle, but we'll have a bunch of things. And in the end, when we make a new car, we can just center that on the stage like so. Ba-doop. Oh, that's a pretty thin looking car body. Let's add some wheels. So var wheel is equal to a new zim dot circle, like so, and we'll give this a radius, say 20, and a frame dot gray on the inside, and a frame dot darker. That's almost black, but not quite. And we'll give that a, what is that? That's the stroke, or the border of 10. Now we want to take that and we will add it to the, well, we need to make a couple wheels. So before we do that, let's just make another one. Var wheel 2 is equal to wheel dot clone. Well, one nice thing about a clone is that it'll clone properties like X and Y. So let's just position the Y of the wheel. We've got to move the wheel down. So wheel dot Y plus equals, oh, well, we'll set it equal to, that would be the body dot height. Okay, that looks good. So the wheel's Y is the body dot height. Then when we clone it, both of these wheels will have the height of the body. And then we just have to position their X positions. So that is wheel dot X is equal to, this is the first wheel. We'll move it over the radius of the wheel. So wheel dot radius plus some amount, 20 or something. That'll be the spacing between the front. And we'll copy that same thing and do that for the back wheel. Wheel 2 is equal to the body's length, body dot length, or sorry, width, minus that, and minus that, otherwise our wheel will look a little bit off. Great, and now we want to add those wheels to the body. Body dot add child wheel, comma, wheel 2. Semicolon, and check it out. Perhaps we should have labeled this wagon, our wagon. Oh, well, how about a cab? We'll put a cab on that. Here's something that can go up in here. Sort of be like the body, so I'll just copy that. Var cab, C-A-B. This is the top bit. And a rectangle, we won't make it quite as long as, what should we make it just half as long or something like that? What do you think? Yeah, maybe half it, 150. Okay, we'll make it the same color. And how about we make it sort of see-through, like the windows or something like that. So that would be frame dot lighter, comma, the color can go around it then, and we'll give it a thickness of something like 5 or something like that. We're going to run out of space here, maybe. Thickness of 5. How about a corner as well? So we'll round this a bit, 20 in the corner, and flat bottom it, otherwise it will have rounded bottoms as well, which could look cool, but we'll just flat bottom it. So that flat bottom's a rectangle but leaves the top rounded. We added that to the rectangle to handle tabs. Turned out it's also good for making cars. And we're adding it to this, but we better center it. We'll center it on the body. So we're going to center it on the body. So rather than adding it to this, maybe it won't matter. We'll center it on the body, and then we can set its position here as well. Dot pose in the Y. We don't need the X, so we'll go null in the X. And the Y, we can move it up a bit. I don't know how much we need to move it up a bit. We'll try that. Kind of like embed it a little bit in the body. We could put it right on top of the body, but let's see what this looks like. Oh, sweet. Let's see what it looks like right up on the body. If that looks better, minus 60. Or we should maybe put in the width of these things, I suppose. Yeah, it's a little bit dorky looking. Well, not bad. Give it more of a corner. Where was the corner here? How about a 40 corner? And see if it starts to look like some sort of mile. I kind of liked it a little bit lower. Anyway, we're getting aside the point here. 50. What do we think? we should round the body too. We'll do the same thing to the body. So that would be null for the border color, null for the border thickness, and then a round on the body of whatever, 20. I want a sports car. Give me a sports car. Should we flat bottom that? If we don't flat bottom it, let's take a look. It looks probably pretty funny. Actually, that's not too bad. If we move the wheels in, we can try a flat bottom on that too. So that is true for the flat bottom. And we save this up. And fine. Okay, good enough. There's our car. Now, it is a car, so luckily we can do things like center it on the stage or as a container, and we can also drag it, for instance. So here's a draggable car. Refresh. Cool, huh? And so there we've got one car, and now let's make another car. Car 2. We'll make this one frame dot, what color do you want? Purple. Oh, yeah. Frame dot purple. We'll center it on the stage, and we'll drag it too. So we'll get two. They'll be in the same place. Beep 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 beep. And we could animate it as well. Oh, that's interesting. It doesn't the dragon pick. Oh, anyway. So there she be. And what else? How about we show you how to override? Let's do an override on it. So there's, we're extending, it's a container, car is extending a container. Now if we want to override, in general, what it's like is this. We say this dot center equals functions, function like that. Now this function needs to receive a container of some sort, like that, and then squigglies. So now we have a center function, but because this center function is now on the car, it will override the center that was traditionally given to it. Okay, so for instance, now also because we're chaining the center in there, we need to remember to return this. So return this. What return this does is it, once it's finished with the center, it returns the fact that we're talking about the car, and therefore when we get to drag, we're talking about the car. We're going to drag the car. So this should work, except it's not going to center it anymore because we didn't do any. We overrode the centering. All it's going to do is chain it. It won't even add it, so we don't even see it. We would need an add child here, but or an add child here, or add to, or something else, because the centering's not adding. So in other words, we want to call the old center method. Okay, the old center method is on the container, and that would look like this dot super underscore center. So there we are accessing the center, and we would pass to it the container. So what this will do is it will center this, which is the car, on the container. And then we're returning this, because we need to return it. So we should be back to normal as long as the super super underscore center worked, which unfortunately does not. This dot super underscore center is not a function. And it's like, oh, well, why not? That's too bad. Well, what we need to be, it would be a lot to provide all of these methods. Like there's, you know, a couple dozen ZIM methods. There's a ton of create.js methods, and we don't want to provide them all available to us as super underscore center, or sorry, well, super underscore whatever the method is. So we give you, by default, we give you the constructor, but that's all. So if we want to, we give you the constructor, and also just a sort of a small caveat, you can also set up the center outside. So if we were to set that up outside here on the prototype, which would look like car.prototype. You can have a look at the what is prototype and stuff like that to find out what we're doing here. What is extend? I think we talk about that in what is extend in the what is series. But car.prototype.center is equal to that. I believe, I recall, this should work for us. There it is. So any functions that we make on the prototype that happen to override functions that already belong to the container, we will give you access to the super on that. But if we're inside here, just undo that. If we're inside, this is where I like to put my methods usually, is inside the class definition here. We have access to local variables at that point, so it gives it an advantage. There might also be a speed advantage, not sure. But anyway, this is where I usually make my methods, and if we make the methods inside, the way we gain access to it is we just pass in that method, so center right there. And if we have more than one method that we're overriding inside, then we pass in an array of an array. I wonder why that didn't work. Let's try that again. Oh, I just typed the square brackets. I'm going shift square brackets. So we would pass in an array of things that we wanted to override, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but at the moment, we've only got the center, so we can just pass it in like so. Now, what this is doing is it's saying when extend sets it up, it will say, okay, hey, you wanted center, you're going to need the center from the superconductor. Superconductor, yeah, the super class. Therefore, you will be given it. Okay, so now this will work. And we refresh here, and we're back to working. Yay! So there you go. That's extending ZIM. Now we've extended a container. In theory, you could extend other things in ZIM as well, like make your buttons do extra special stuff if you wanted to extend a button, and so forth. So that's not bad. It's the combination of ZIM extend on there, as well as calling the super constructor, and that's for that helps in the create.js side. And this system was somewhat put into place by create.js, but have a read of the documentation, and we discuss some of the differences between the create.js extend and the ZIM extend. All right, Neato Mosquito. My name is Dan Zen. Hey, what's your name? Why don't you leave us a comment one day on one of these captures? Be more than happy to speak with any of you. Somebody just left a message saying they were getting an error in something, and they left that on a capture. And within 20 minutes, I got back to them and I said, oh, as of ZIM 4.3, you've got to make sure that create.js is placed before ZIM. And the reason why was we put in ZIM extend, and we used the create.js way of extending. When we refactored all of the ZIM code, that was quite a big change internally. When we refactored all of that so that we could apply the extend in this manner, the situation, the unfortunate side effect was that create.js needs to be loaded before ZIM is loaded. Okay, we had worked around that from ZIM 1 all the way. We worked around that so it didn't matter, but we were cheating a little bit when, and how, whenever we made, a new button like that, what we were doing was we were running a function actually that would then ask for create.js and then return an object, build an object in behind and return an object. So that was our way of avoiding needing create.js required right away. But now that we've implemented the extend and done all this stuff, we had to back out of that and kind of do it the so-called proper way, I suppose you would call it. And so, yeah, sure, leave some comments here on these captures. This is the last capture, last known capture in the whole series of basic captures, mid-level captures, and advanced captures. So all in all, about 50 of them, maybe 48 or whatever, something like that. And it's a YouTube video. Hit the like button. It makes me feel better. Yeah, it makes me feel better. Wine, wine, wine. I'm really happy to be able to provide these, and I hope they've been helpful. I'm sure they will be if you spend some time with it. It's been an amazing run in creating ZIM here. I would say that we're pretty close to stable. There's a blog post about the latest launch of 4.6. It might be silly to talk about it, and you're watching this a year later, and we're on ZIM 5 and ZIM 6. But there is actually in that blog post of 4.6 a little bit of a roadmap and a summary of what we've done here at ZIM in the last little while, including 64 ZIM bit examples. Launched new versions and new sites of ZIM, all of these What Is series and the ZIM captures and workshops and lessons. So I'd love it if people get involved, and hey, that'd be great. Thank you very much for hanging out and listening to these captures. I'm inventor Dan Zen from zimjs.com. Have a great day. And as a matter of fact, have a great year. Ciao.